is going to be our first video on this Mclaren 570S that we did a full bespoke status detail to, which is essentially our highest tier of package, which basically means this car can't really look a whole lot better than it does right now. It looks better right now in this completed state than it ever looked from when it rolled out of the manufacturer or when it rolled out of the dealership when it was brand new. We do really high-end paint refinement, which basically is done by 0 manufacturers, and that's why the car ends up looking so shiny and so glossy. So we're going to kind of walk you guys through some of the steps that we take and show you what we did to this car. If this is the kind of stuff you're interested in, like I said, you're probably in the right place, and you should follow our page and kind of check out our Instagram page as well, because we do a lot of stuff on our Instagram page. So let's jump into it. Let's get into some of the details on this car. The whole point of this video was to kind of talk about how it's more complex to detail a McLaren as opposed to like an M5 or an M3, for example. So the biggest difference is kind of the lines, and there's lots of just unique lines to the car, and then there's lots of interesting vents and things like that we kind of have to be careful of. Also, this car has carbon ceramic brakes all the way around. So carbon ceramic rotors are very, very cool pieces of kit for a car. But you have to be very careful when you're cleaning them, because you cannot clean them the same way that you would clean standard brakes, again, on like an M3 or an M5. Not to pick on BMW, that's just kind of what's coming to mind. But those are very large brakes with very big pistons that are usually, Brembo based for calipers, but the rotor is a whole different game, so you have to be kind of careful about that. We'll kind of jump into that discussion in a little bit. But like we mentioned a second ago, there's lots of vents, and there's like lots of radiators in the front, and there's a big radiator here in the back, and it's kind of being fed air a couple different ways. And especially when we're washing with a pressure washer, which in our opinion is one of the best ways to wash a car, you really don't want to be blasting like 1500 psi of water pressure into a vent there, because you can kind of screw up the radiators. So you have to be careful of some of that stuff. Same thing with the front area, and then there's different body panels here. They're kind of fragile. You have to be a little more careful. You don't want to be bumping things, and you certainly just want to be careful with a pressure washer when you're running a pressure washer over a car like this. It's just different than doing a standard car. For example, we'll try and get a shot in a second, or we'll probably play some B-roll over this. The entire back of the car where the engine is just completely open, so I could just dump like 3 gallons of water over the back, and it would just go directly onto the engine. So if a car was just driven here, for example, and we were going to wash the car, if we were just pressure washing over here, what's going to happen is it's going to create a whole lot of steam, because we're just going to be putting a ton of water over this really, really hot engine, which is just unnecessary, because there's nothing there to really wash, and there's different ways to wash it without using a pressure washer. So those are some of the intricacies of kind of washing a car like this. Speaking of washing, so that's kind of the first step that we take when the car comes in. We had to wash it before we could really do any of the high-end detailing on this car. So we'll play some B-roll over some of this footage so you guys can see some of that wash process, because it was pretty unique. So when the car first got here, we did a bunch of wheel cleaning. So it was hot outside, and because it was hot outside, it was still the morning. The way our shop is kind of structured, we get a lot of sun in the morning. So if I was to just jump into washing all the paint, I would get a lot of water all over the car, and I would foam it and go through all the necessary steps to wash a car the normal way. But what's going to probably happen, even though the car is small and I could work pretty quickly, is it's pretty inevitable that you might get water spots on a car that is not currently well protected with any very good protection, sealant, ceramic sprays, or ceramic, just real ceramic. That's why the car basically came to us, was to get real ceramic put onto it. So I don't want to make my job harder, right? So if we do that process outside in the sun in the morning when it's hot, it was about 85 degrees, it's pretty likely we're going to get some water spots onto the car, and then we have to remove all those water spots before we kind of continue. When the car showed up, it was dirty, but it wasn't filthy by any means. I think you can kind of see that in some of the photos in the video that we took. There was obviously dirt on the car, but it wasn't, filthy. It didn't go like 6 weeks without a wash or anything crazy like that. So we did basically the wheels outside because that was the dirty stuff. We didn't want to bring all that dirt into the garage because we don't have any drains in here, unfortunately. So if we do the full wash inside for the wheels, the only way to do that is the right way, is with a lot of water, in our opinion. So we would kind of flood the place with really black, purple dirt from, wheel cleaners and stuff like that. So we did that section outside with a very controlled spray of a pressure washer and a IK foamer, which is a fantastic product that not a lot of people know about. So we will certainly talk more about those in the future. So that's how we cleaned the wheels, and then once the wheels were completely clean, we brought the car inside into the garage. This is a completely climate-controlled environment, so this entire shop space is drywall that's insulated. It has a roof with insulation above it. It has an air conditioner which also controls humidity, and we also have a heater for the winter. So it's just pleasant to work in here, and it also just makes detailing conditions super, super ideal for when we are detailing cars like this. We will kind of cut to some B-roll, like I said, and show you guys some of the washing, because I'm pretty sure we shot video of the IK foamer on the paint. But yeah, we used a high concentration soap in that IK foamer when we were doing the paint, which is a very unique thing that very few people, if any, honestly, probably do. I've never really seen anyone do a waterless wash the way we do it, because I think we've kind of invented a new way, and that's another thing we'll make in a future video. But basically we're using an IK foamer, which is a product that's super awesome that not many people know about. And then we're using a soap, which is really the magic of that formula. And the soap is a Status branded soap, believe it or not. So we made our own soap not too long ago. We kind of had some connections to a chemical company, and that chemical company, with the help of me, we made a soap that was from the ground up, custom built to work on cars. And kind of depending on the way you dilute that soap, it'll do some different things for you. And if you use that soap basically almost 100% straight, just full strength, it becomes an extremely strong decon soap. So when you use a decon soap like this on paint through an IK foamer, it will foam onto the car, and then it's so strong that it'll basically pull everything off the car, including sealants and waxes and stuff like that. So it's an ideal process for prepping a car for polish, because it's going to pull everything off the car, and it's going to kind of give us what we like to call naked paint, which means there's nothing on it, so we can kind of see what we're dealing with when we know when we're going into the polishing steps. So yeah, so that's some videos probably already played over, so you've kind of seen that product. And again, the main reason we did that, more than anything, even if we had 50-degree weather outside or 60-degree weather outside, is because of the way this car is shaped, the way the vents are, the way the back is open. It just makes it's not only easier to wash the car that way, it's safer for the entire car. We're constantly switching out towels. I probably used like 15 towels or so, 15, 18 towels to clean the entire car. So instead of using one wash pad, which I'm going to use on the entire car, which introduces possibilities for reintroducing dirt back on the paint, we're using like 15 to 18 or 20 towels, which mean only one towel has 4 sides. When you fold it, we'll do a whole door, right? So I'm using like a 1 towel per panel around the entire car. When you're doing that, you're just making it super safe for the car. When I'm pulling dirt off, I'm never putting dirt back on. And that's one of the #1 ways you're going to scratch a car, and I don't really want to scratch the car any more than it's already scratched right before I polish it. So that's one of the main reasons we do that process sometimes. We don't do that all the time. But on a car like this, it made a lot of sense to do the process that way. So that's one way this car is pretty unique in the way we detailed it, as opposed to just a standard, fun, cool car like an M3 or an M5 or an S6 or some kind of AMG Mercedes. So let's talk about polishing next, because that's the next really big difference in terms of the way you're going to choose a detailer, and also just what we did to the car physically is very different. So let's take a look at that. Let's talk about polishing, because when you choose a detailer, especially a high-end detailer, the #1 thing you're paying for is polishing. So that's going to vary from detailer to detailer, and the biggest difference between Status Detail and what we offer and the average other detailer or the large format stores or whoever you're kind of talking to is going to be how they polish. It's going to break down to a lot of different things. Polishing is very complex. We can talk about this more in some other videos, because I could probably literally make an Obsessed Garage video that's an hour long, literally only talking about polishing, and I don't want to put most of you guys to sleep, because not everyone's going to be interested in that kind of content. So let's kind of just go into the fast version of like polishing and what that means for when you're choosing a detailer. A lot of detailers are going to do a one-step polish on your car, which means they're going to do the entire car with like hopefully more than one pad, but they're probably going to use one pad on a polisher. They're going to go around the entire car one time and do a one-step. And most people charge a couple $100 for that, and the car will turn out noticeably better, which is a great thing, right? But that's not always going to be a good thing that it turned out so good, because they might have cut very quickly to get the result. And like I said, that's going to be a different video. So what we did to this car that's unique, and that was, you know, it's more expensive, but the customer paid for this to get the better result, is we did multiple steps of correction. Paint correction, or polishing as I kind of like to call it, comes in many steps. It's kind of like sandpaper. So I think a lot of us have the reference of when we were younger or something, we were sanding wood, or you went to wood shop in school and you were sanding wood, and you start with, the wood would be kind of screwed up, right? Like bad paint would start screwed up. So you would use like 100 grit sandpaper, and that would cut through everything really fast, right? And it would get the defects out, but then you'd have like really bad 100 grit sanding marks. So then you have to take out those sanding marks with like 500 grit or 600 grit, and then you need to take 600 grit out with 1,000, and then you have to take 1,000 out with 2,000, and then it's perfect and it's amazingly soft, and it's like a high-end piece of wood that you can. All right, so to continue kind of where we left off, sorry, our SD card kind of got full there and it got screwed up, so we had to switch SD cards. So we left off with the reference to like sanding, sandpaper grit changing, and that's kind of how we do paint correction. So we do a very aggressive step, or maybe not necessarily very aggressive, but we do an aggressive step, and then we follow it by less aggressive and then less aggressive, and then we finish with a jeweling step, which is a very unique polishing step that very, very few people use, but that's really like, like most people will get you, or most people will get you to 70% or 80% like clarity in paint, and then like really good people will get you to like 90 or 95, and then the people like us who are like really passionate about this, who are really crazy and have clients who are also really passionate and kind of crazy about their cars, will pay for that last 5% or that last 10%, and you achieve that by doing jeweling. And when you're jeweling the paint, you're doing a very unique process with a very unique polish, with a very unique pad that's fitted to the car, because every car's paint's going to be different, and that results in a really unbelievable shine and gloss, which you'll kind of see as you walk around this car and when we walk you around it. But to show you some of our pads, this is, as we said a second ago, a lot of people are going to use one pad. So this is a pad that we use basically for most of the car. We switch this out every once in a while because we're not going to use one pad to do the entire car. That's just not a good practice. But this pad is large, right? When you can see this on the paint, this can do large sections of the paint, and it'll be efficient. It'll work quickly. But for example, this section right here, this section's very narrow, right? This section's also very narrow, so this would never fit in there. So if you're a detailer operation with very few polishers, or only large pads like this, like many people are, you'd never be able to polish inside of this door. You'd never be able to polish this lip down here effectively. It would be a little complicated to do the mirror. It would be extremely complicated to do the trim on the top of the window over here. I think that, yeah, that's in the video there, so you can see that. That wouldn't really work either. This will, for example, work right here in the very back part of the door. So this can kind of get in here very carefully, but you'd have to be extremely careful not to hit the top or the bottom of the door, because you would definitely scratch it if you were to hit the polisher into that, because it's oscillating all over the place, so you don't want to bang it into anything. So that's why we have smaller pads as well that fit different polishers. We have many different polishers. We don't just have one. So we have a 3-inch pad, which you can see is massively different than the large pad that we have on this side. So the 3-inch pad works really good on a lot of stuff. It'll work really good right here, for example, on the side by the mirror. It would work very good on this section of the door where it splits on the top. It'll be very handy to do sections in here that the larger pad's not going to get to. So the larger pad would kind of stop about here, where we'd only polish to here, and now the 3-inch pad's going to pick up the rest of it from here. But then again, it gets smaller, right? So this is still not going to fit over there. So from this size, we have the 3, and then we're going to have a 2-inch pad, which is even smaller. And then from these sizes, we still have one more little 1-inch pad, which is extremely small. So these guys come in handy for all different kinds of things. The 2-inch pad here could be handy for doing a mirror, like right here, for example. We can use this in here, but we actually never use the 2-inch in here. We use the 1-inch for that entire section. So the 1-inch basically went in the entire section here and did that. We also use, I believe, the 2-inch on this bottom piece. I think that's in the camera. Here, we'll show it back here. So yeah, this was used basically in this entire section down here. Different areas as well. We can kind of walk around the car. I'll walk you around a few more spots of the car and just show you where the pad sizes make a big difference. And if your detailer doesn't have these different pad sizes, they're basically just never going to polish that section of the car. And depending on the polishers they have, even if they have the right pad size, the polisher might not fit into the spot. And then there's rotary polishers and dual action polishers, and both of those are going to be very handy for different kinds of sections and areas and the kind of correction you need to do. So if you don't have all those polishers, you're not going to really be able to polish a car like this. Having the right polishers can cost several $1,000s just to have the right tools to do a car like this, not including the pads. If we have all the pads, it would be another probably $1,000 in just pads. So that's a good question. We'll talk about that in future videos. If you're too far away and don't have the means to ship your car to Status Detail to have us do your car, that's okay. You can use a local detailer who you trust to work on your car. But in future videos, we're going to talk about, what are good questions to ask that detailer? What are good questions to ask them so you can understand, is this guy really good? Is he going to be able to have, the 3-inch and the 2-inch pads to knock out the car? Or does he only have one polisher and one pad to knock the entire car out? Because if you don't have those things, you're not really going to be able to do the car effectively. Now, even if you have an M5 or an M3 or an S2000 or whatever it might be, 3-inch pads are really handy. They come in handy for a lot of things on cars that you're not going to really think about until you really look at a car the right way with a detailer's eyes, and then you're going to be like, whoa, I can't do that section properly without the right tools. So like I said, let's keep walking around the car and I'll show you some more specs. We're on the front of the car now. And so this is our big guy that we did the majority of the car. We're going to do the hood with that, obviously. I'll show it this way so you can see it. We're going to do the hood, obviously, with something like this. But doing something in here gets really complicated because of the curvature of this. So again, I don't want to get too in-depth on polishing techniques and things like that in this video. But basically, the way this is curved, if I lay this on here, I'm hoping that shows up somewhat on video. This might not be the right angle for it. But the way this is going, it's not laying flat, right? When you're polishing, you want the pad to lay flat. Like if it was on the hood, it would lay completely flat. When it's down here, it's not laying flat. There's a gap. I can literally put my hand underneath this pad because it's not touching anything. So it's only touching on the top right and the bottom left corners. And what we're doing is we're creating a lot of heat on the top right and the top left corners, and we're creating no heat in the center because it's not touching. And that's basically an indication that this is the wrong size pad to be polishing in that section. So if you try to force the pad into that section, it might work for a little bit, but you're risking a lot of things, and most of them are way high friction points in the top and bottom, which is going to cause you to burn through the paint. So again, if your detailer doesn't have these kinds of pads and they're forcing it into that area, and you have like an exotic car or something, you're really playing with fire. You need to use a professional to do your car, not someone who has a smaller operation or maybe just is the better price or something. Don't risk that on like a carbon fiber panel that's going to be like $5,000 to repaint. So when we use a 3-inch pad here, it lays completely flat. So this would be the right pad to use. I could also use this 2-inch pad. It would take me more time, but it would be more precise. It'd be more like an X-Acto knife, and this would be more like a sledgehammer. Even though both of these are that's an extreme example. Both of these will work in this area, and this will clearly not work in that area. Now, same thing on this side. Hopefully we can still be seen on the camera here. This is the wrong size, and then again, the 3-inch is going to be the right size for here. It's going to be the right size for here, and then the 2-inch is the right size for this lip in here. This goes far back too, so this goes all the way into the air duct over here. So again, those are just some examples. Also, you wouldn't want to use the edge of this under the light. That's the wrong idea. The 2-inch is the right idea for here. where this would actually still be too large. So the 3 inch is the wrong size there, but the 2 inch is going to be the right size there. Just another, kind of walk around the car. I think there's probably one more spot we can find where we can give good examples like this. All right, guys, so this is, first of all, this is just a really pretty part of the car. It's just there's an amazing line right here that, I don't know if the camera's doing it justice. It's just a really beautiful line in the car. This is kind of why we do this kind of stuff. This is why I started Status Detail, and to do this kind of detailing, because polishing a panel like this is really cool. One of the taglines that we've had on our website for a while, and that we kind of use here and there, is when detailing turns to art, and this is kind of a representation of that, in my opinion. This is just a really beautiful thing to look at. Now it's really dialed in, it's really glossy. The dual layer coating is kind of making it more glossy and slick. It's just a cool thing to look at. But that aside, so another interesting area where we had to polish, right? I couldn't really show you in the front where I said the pad wasn't touching all the way, but I think this will be the right angle. So if we show this like this, yeah, it looks like that's showing up on the camera. So you can see, like, you can put your finger underneath here. It's not touching. Same thing here. I think that's going to show up even better. So that's not touching anywhere on the entire car. So if I was spinning this pad here, what's going to happen is, first of all, most detailers who aren't, used to working on exotic cars like this are probably not going to realize this, and they're going to go, this panel is huge. So just because the panel is big, I can use a big pad. Everything else I've showed you, the panel was too small to use a big pad. Like, it physically was not possible. That's where this is so dangerous, because this panel is so large that we can actually use a big pad and still get into trouble. So because this is like this, again, like we mentioned before, we're going to cause a lot of friction here, and nothing in the center. So as this is spinning, it's heating up here, and there's often also very little polish on the outside edge, which means we're basically like rotary drilling into the paint here, even though in this case we're using a DA. Rotary was the wrong word. But yeah, so this is going to create a lot of friction, a lot of heat. It's going to make marks in the paint, and if we do it long enough at the wrong pace and we're not paying attention, we will absolutely burn through the paint here, which will cause a huge problem, especially because this panel is like a major panel on the car. It would be very expensive to repaint. So, for example, this pad works great here in the back because it lays flat. I think that can be seen on the camera. It doesn't lay flat, again, like here. It's a little better here though, right? Same thing back here. It's pretty flat in the back. If we're getting like 75, 80% contact, we're in pretty good shape. Now the 3-inch though, the 3-inch is very happy in many of these spaces where at least, some of them are going to be hard, but when we get to the smaller sizes, we can still achieve that 70% contact, where at least we're getting most of the pad touching it. That's much better than this, where almost none of it is touching it. So these are things to look out for when you're detailing an exotic car. We don't experience problems like this when we do basically virtually any car that's not a McLaren or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. A McLaren, especially in the back, and kind of a good example of it, honestly, is a 911 or a GT3 or a GT3 RS. The way the backs of the cars, of those cars are shaped is very similar to this, only it's kind of the inverse of what this panel is. You got to be careful of that kind of stuff, and those are things that we always talk about. We have thousands of hours and things like that in our research to make sure we can handle this kind of detailing. So be careful of the detailer you use in a car, because this can be a very dangerous thing for a car if you don't know what you're doing. All right, guys, so once again, I'm not even going to use the 6-inch pad. I think you guys get it at this point. There's like no area on this entire back bumper that we can use a 6-inch pad and make it make sense. It's a little hard to tell, but back here there's a lip to this little first wing where this is going to be the right size, or even like a 1-inch is going to be the right size to do that whole lip. And then down here, we're going to use a 1-inch around the emblem. Around here, we can use a 1-inch here, or we can kind of get a 2-inch into most of these areas. And that's going to be a 2-inch. And then for the bigger areas, we would use, oh, we're on the wrong side. Let's do it on this side. So this will be the 3-inch over here, and a 3-inch. And then, I mean, if you really wanted to push it, you could use a 3-inch here. But we would probably switch over to using a 2-inch here, and then we'd use a 2-inch up here. And then these lips right here are basically 100% a 1-inch. Another 1-inch here, and then we would do a 1-inch on this lip as well. So basically the entire back bumper is impossible to do if you only have one polisher that's like a 6-inch large throw polisher. You would not be able to polish the back of this car. So again, these are the kinds of questions you would want to ask a detailer if you weren't using someone like us. Even if you were local, I would still ask questions like these if you had an exotic car, and I would still, you know, especially if you're not local and you want to use a high-end detailer to detail your exotic car, you know, ask to see their polishers. See if they have a 1-inch pad like this or a 3-inch pad. Because if they tell you they don't have pads like that or they don't use them enough, that might be true. They don't do cars where those are going to be required often. But if you have a car like this, that's not going to be a detailer for you. Make sure you don't go there, because there will be massive sections where they're not going to be able to do your car. They might end up trying to like finger polish stuff by hand, which is doable, but I mean, if you have a car like this, you should not be paying a person to hand polish anything. You need to be using machines with the right tools and the right pad sizes. So that's kind of a good walk around of the entire car, basically, and showing the complexity of polishing. And that's the biggest difference we're going to have on this car, as far as like weird differences from a standard detail to an exotic car like this. All right, guys, so let's talk about coatings now. So after we do the polish, we do like a full panel prep, which means we're going to wipe away all of the old, or not old, but the freshly polished stuff can leave residue behind. So we're going to wipe all that down with panel prep, which will kind of dissolve all that away. And then we're going to move the coatings. So a lot of people probably don't know how some of this stuff goes on. So it actually goes on with this little block. This is like a little foam block, and hopefully that'll focus. Maybe if I come back here, it'll kind of focus. So this is a little block, it's foam. A lot of people use microfiber, like big blocks to put this kind of stuff on. We don't really do it that way. That's for a lot of different reasons that we won't get into this video. But we use this, and then this is just a piece of suede. Both of these are made by Geon. We do not use Geon coatings for most of the things we do. I just like their suede applicators and their blocks, basically. But like I said, that'll be for another video. So basically, you're going to wrap this into this, and then we tuck the edges in so that it's held in place, and then you're going to rub this across the entire car very methodically, and that's how you put a coating on. There's a lot of misconceptions with coatings and what they do and how you maintain them, and a lot of people will say that some coatings are better than others and that some coatings will last for 10 years and some will last for 1. Again, we're going to make videos in the future about those things, and we'll talk more about that. But this is just a video about how we put this on and how it's kind of interesting to do this to an exotic car. So a coating we put on in this room, we can kind of control how it's going to cure immediately, like how it's going to set, because we have the temperature control. So because the room is climate controlled and humidity controlled, we kind of have the car, when we put the coating on, it comes off the same basically 99% of the time. Most people don't have the luxury of that, which means their applications are going to be different every time, which means they really can't guarantee that the coating was put on perfectly to the maximum durability, which is, you know, not going to be good. If you take the coating off too early, it's going to fail prematurely, and if you leave it on too long, you'll get things like high spots and it won't look good. So because I've put so many coatings on cars now, and I've done it in a climate-controlled room at the same temperature with the same humidity, it's like every time I do a coating is just like the last time I did it. But when you do it in an open, drafty room or with no humidity control or no temperature control, all those variables are going to be up in the air every single time you install, which is going to mean every install is different every single time, and your wipe-off periods are going to be different every single time, and that makes installing a coating difficult. It doesn't make it impossible, but it makes it difficult. So because we can control that in here, it makes it very easy. But this car still makes it very complicated. So I have to wipe this, for example, you know, on the door here, but then I also need to do it in the door. I need to do it here, and this door is like completely passed through. So it's interesting, you know. You don't see that in a normal car. So when I'm wiping off, I have to remember to wipe off here. I have to wipe off on the bottom. You're kind of on the clock as you're wiping off because the coating begins to dry as soon as you put it on the car. And you have to be able to get into the back, and you have to make sure there's no high spots when you're wiping off. That's very complicated to do when the door is so complicated. So what we did is we did the car very slowly in multiple parts to make sure we weren't going too fast. The biggest problem you experience in those things is when you're going too fast, is when you start to make mistakes because you're covering way too much ground at once. That's another good tip for anyone choosing a detailer. If you have multiple cars, for example, never rush your detailer, never tell them you need your car back immediately. If it's no difference to you, if they have a car an extra day or something, always let them take their time, because you don't want to rush things like this. If you're not rushing, you'll never make a mistake, and that's kind of something we live by. So we really try and take our time when we're doing a car, and because of that, we've basically never made a mistake on any car ever, which is kind of a nice feeling. You know, we do pretty high-end work, and because we work very carefully and very smart with a very OCD mind, we're really tuned into the details in the cars, and stuff like this can get you in trouble when you're putting a coating onto a really crazy, complicated McLaren door like this one. All right, guys, hopefully that was a cool inside look into status detail. We've never kind of made a video like this. We've really never made any videos at all. We've done a lot of really cool photos on Instagram. So if you're from Instagram, thank you for your support in helping us make this video, because we kind of needed the motivation to do it. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel now, please obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be around, I think, on YouTube, so it's probably a good place to subscribe to and kind of look out for our videos. And if it's your first time seeing us, maybe at all, obviously after you subscribe here, you definitely want to check out our Instagram page. We are more active on our Instagram than we are anywhere else. That's the best way to get our content, and then this will probably be the second best place to get your content if you're looking for high-end detailing and just stuff that status detail is up to. This is such a cool car. I'm so glad we got to do this thing. It's going to be in many more videos, so this car will be around, which is a very cool thing. We're going to shoot a lot of videos on this car regarding just car care, how to clean things, how to take care of Alcantara, which is probably one of the #1 requested questions I think people have, because no one knows how to do it the right way, but we do, so we'll share that with you guys. We're going to talk about leather care, we're going to talk about coating care, we're going to talk about proper wash methods, we're going to talk about all the products that we use in the process of doing all of those different cleanings, so we take the guesswork out so you guys know what to use. Like I said, if you guys enjoyed this video, give us a like, give us a comment, just let us know what you guys want from the YouTube channel, because we want to give you guys really cool content. So please let us know what you're looking to have done. If we missed any stuff on this car that you guys had a lot of questions about, please put that in the comments below. If we get enough people saying the same things, we will shoot some more video on this car specific to this detail on those questions that we might have missed. There's so many things to talk about that we could literally make a video that would be way too long for most people's viewing attention spans. So we'll break it into smaller segments. Let us know what you want to know about this car, especially regarding the detail section, and I'd love to kind of talk more about that stuff. I know just off the top of my head, thinking right now, we didn't talk too much about like leather care and what we did to the Alcantara on the inside, but that's going to be its own just cleaning video just on its own. So that stuff is coming, so don't worry about that. In general, if you have any questions for us regarding things you're curious, how to clean something, how to do something on your car, if you have any ideas for future videos for us to do, please put those in the comment box below. Also, please comment on any of those things on our Instagram posts. We will more than happily, take those things into consideration and be able to make videos in the future on those things. But other than that, guys, that's going to wrap it up for the first status detail video for YouTube. It's pretty exciting. I'm happy we're doing this, and I'm pretty excited to make more videos like this, especially on cars like this and other exotic cars. So, like we said, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, and that's going to wrap up the first video, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon on YouTube.